from the Tuesday night marathon, so since I'm not going back to the last one, play a great game tonight, and then next week we will go over it and just email me or tell me and mark it. I always find your games terribly entertaining, even if there's some mistake that Magnus may not make. You get these great action there. There's nothing super going on right now in the chess world. Soon we'll start the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz, and afterwards the Sinkfeld Cup. Magnus is playing there. Recently finished was the Paris Grand Prix, won by MVL, Maxime Vacher-Lagrave. He was actually doing poorly in the Blitz in that, which he used to be the highest rated Blitz player in the world. Somehow lost 100 points, but won the event because he did well in the Rapid. Our American Fabiano Caruana was tied for fourth. Maybe I'll start off with one of his Rapid games. And Fabiano plays the Petrov defense with black, but here he had to face it himself. And one nice thing about Rapid chess is that everything's a little less drawish. He is playing Jan Krzysztof Duda, this great young Polish talent. And Fabiano plays the very trendy knight c3, which doubles your pawns but gives you quick development. And Duda carries out according to classical opening theory, development castles, and what's nice is, at least in this Petrov variation, you castle on opposite sides, so it's a bit more fun for us spectators. Duda gets the knight to the king side, and development, and pawn to c5 is a little double-edged, that the d-pawn's a little backward, but it's moving pawns towards the white king position, covers some of the central squares. So this part is fine. Develop all your pieces like Morphy, hitting the a pawn, and Queen a5, threatening to do checkmate in 2 moves. Avoids. So pawn to c4, sort of a committing move, giving away this d4 square. But one thing it does, it allows the black knight to jump in and cause some trouble there. And Fabiano had to retreat all the way down to c1 with the queen. So black has gotten a bit of space. The white has a nice square here. Pawn to d5. Bishop to a great central square. Rook c8. Knight e5. And now the game's developed. It's quite interesting here. It's hard to play perfectly in any chess game, especially in Rapid. And here Duda should have played, well, maybe pawn to f6 or something like queen to b5, sort of making this king worry over here. He played instead kind of a retreating move, and the white pieces now start to come out. Rook d8, queen f4, and white's looking kind of active. Rook to e3. Yeah, it feels kind of nice for white to have all these pieces over near the king side. So black has to be careful here. Queen c7. Double and knight e4. Bishop takes e6, recaptures with the pawn, and kicks the knight off of the central square. So a little initiative there for Fabiano. And now knight to g4. And here he goes wrong. He decides to kick the knight. Oh, my apologies. I made a bit of a typo. It was before f3. It had been rook takes e6, pawn, knight. Yes. So I'm wondering why he doesn't just take twice on e6 here.
He had to play knight g4 first, and now it's black's
Oh, apologies. Yes, thank you. Knight g4, and now h5 is just not a great move. You should treat it, but at least it allows us the entertainment where he takes, and Fabiano sacrifices the knight, which it's not so clear. You've got all these black defenders here, so it doesn't seem like it's that easy to get in. You have to take the knight sacrifice, and rook takes on e6. What's really nice about this game for white is your king is so safe. So you can focus all your energy on an attack or on pawns and things. So otherwise, you'd think that these black pieces would be able to hold you off. Now, Duda came back with the knight. Rook to g6 check, and well, you can't let that bishop go. You can't go king h7 and go in for a discovered check. Something like here, you'd have a double discovered check. So he played after rook g6 check, bishop g7, and queen takes h6. And what you have here is you're not going to checkmate black. So, okay, there's enough defenders here, but you already have two pawns for the piece. And of course, this one's loose. And then with the king loose, some checks. So rook d8, and he just took the pawn on h5. You've got three pawns for the piece. The queen to f7, or sorry, queen to e7. And again, what's nice is you can just hide with the king. It's just, what a great fortress you have over there. And you know, all the black pieces, there's no counterattack going on. So you can play a very slow move with the white side. Fabiano played pawn to f4. Just taking his time. Duda got one more piece defending because the threat's pawn f5, f6, but Fabiano takes it. The knight's hanging, so he had to take with the knight. And now you take another pawn, so you've got 4 pawns for the piece. Still would be some chances with the that these pawns are doubled, but check, back, queen g6, simply tying him up. Knight e8, and let's get a move from the audience here. You're Fabiano playing one of the greatest young talents. What move do you play here? F5, attacking. Any other suggestions?
H4.
H4, bringing another pawn there. That's anything else? Nice and slow. I like that. I like that. One more suggestion. Bishop c5, attacking the queen, although it would probably move. Thank you. Greed. Greed, yes. Yes, take one more pawn. Because that's sort of the tipping point that now you're going to have enough material to win the game. So now black has to do something really special. He's down enough, so the end games will be lost too. I just like that you have this bishop on this very powerful diagonal, but you go and grab a pawn, and that kind of makes it decisive. Okay, not so much to do. You can trade queens or not trade queens, but Duda comes back, so now Caruana just comes back to the powerful spot with the bishop. He gives a check, but nice safe place for the king, and you just can't do anything. These threats against the king, so Duda trades off into the endgame. Traded, and traded the bishops. And then, yeah, you ought to feel pretty confident you can win with 5 pawns against a knight. It's still your endgame technique. What move would you play for the white side? It's not really a lot of tactics here. This knight. What's that?
G4.
Yeah, you could do that. G4. You might like go here, attacking. Here, cause some trouble there.
Move the king to a better place.
Where should we move the king?
D4.
D4. I would like to move it there.
D1 to B1 to C1.
Okay, you have a suggestion here. Yes, and you had exactly the right idea. Move the king to a better square, so pawn to A4, and if you play that move, it's going to be easy. The pawns will take care of themselves. Meanwhile, the king could also win these pawns. So this is just wrap up here. The knight moved, king came up, knight to D1, pawn to A5, so it's closer to becoming a queen, and you just can't do anything. king here, now threatening to come in. And now your move g4. So you can try getting one of those, but you have to worry about these. You're just going to be too far behind in the race. Duda tried to come over here thinking to help, but as you do in these cases, then hit him on the other side. And at this point, he threw in the towel. It's funny, these rapid and blitz games I find not quite as entertaining as the longer time control games. I like this one that there was some sacrifice and a lot of action, but they can be really fun to watch live. They're much more fun to watch live than the slower time control. But to me, the quality of the games aren't quite as interesting. So then what else going on? Kramnik came back. Kramnik had retired. But there was a tournament run in Amsterdam, and that was the Levatov Rapid there. And that was a private tournament, somehow run by a Russian oligarch or something that just invited a lot of Russian players and a couple people like Anand, but
Was it rated?
it was a rapid tournament, so rated for rapid, but not regular. And Kramnik actually didn't play very well. I suppose he was offered a very good appearance fee just to show up, play some games, but I'm not sure he really enjoyed that. What else went on was the senior championship at the U.S. Open. And actually the U.S. Open is going on in Florida now. Our own Elliot Winslow played in the senior tournament, got 4 out of 6 points, tied for 5th, I think it was, but unfortunately didn't win it. But tomorrow we're actually going to have a very special event here that you've all heard about. I think Gable will announce it more, but a tandem simultaneous exhibition with 25 players with time control with Shak Mamadov and Ralph Mamadov. Mamadov has been as high rated as number 2 in the world in the top 10. He just recently won this Riga Grand Prix. And Mamadov, he's 2660 rated player. So they're from Azerbaijan, which has this tremendous history of chess. You all know Azerbaijan's most famous player.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, okay. Kasparov, yes, from Baku. And there was also the Chess Olympiad in Baku just 2.5 years ago. So it's a little country that's a real powerhouse in chess. And tomorrow should be thoroughly entertaining. Especially these guys have quite a style. So I thought I'd show you some of the games. And here's...
How do they do a tandem? What is a tandem?
So they can alternate moves, or I believe they can discuss moves. And
They can discuss them, I don't think.
you'll have to take that up with Abel and tell them they're not allowed to.
I know that I looked at some Wikipedia stuff where they haven't got, for one example, they used a blindfold, one of those tandems that was played with Alec Hinson and Toldanowski played it, and it came 3 wins, 2 losses, and a draw, I think is what it was. I mean, but there were teams of people playing against them that could console. I mean, I don't know how they do the blindfold part if they don't have.
Well, this one's not blindfold tomorrow. And I think you can establish the rules before you begin. So I do believe they can talk about it. It's to make it go faster with 25 people. And we have some, a lot of our club members playing. We have Mark Pinto, who's a master player. And actually Patrick Wolf is going to play against them in the simul, so it should be an interesting contest. But let me show you an example of how the Shaq plays. He's really a very active player and a bit unusual. I like his style. So this game is a little older. It's from Beijing, 2013, but against one of the most solid players on the international circuit, Anish Giri. And usually you expect some kind of very difficult game to break through, and usually Giri's games end in a draw. But Shaq, he always mixes it up. And this opening was a Grunfeld. Which, now that can be a very active opening, but it can also sort of peter out into a pretty even endgame. Now Magnus has been playing the exchange variation, where the knight takes and the pawn comes to e4. But I notice Shaq likes to play this, what they call the classical variation. Well, that's with the queen to take the pawn back on c4. But he does it first with check, bishop, and then queen to b3. And Giri takes on c4. So Shaq just takes back. Castles. And instead of e4 right away, bishop f4 on the c pawn. Giri plays a solid move instead of going for development. Shaq advances, and pawn to b5. Black is trying to make use of tempi on the queen, or to do something while the white king is still in the center. So this could get very tactical. Shaq retreat. And maybe now it would be best to advance with a5 and take some space on the queen side there. Giri, though, wants to make use of this king in the center, tries the very tactical pawn to c5. Now, Shaq takes the pawn, queen to a5. So you've got the pin on the knight. Knight takes e4 is threatened. But he had a kind of nice counter to that. Retreating out of the pin, and then there's some discovered on the queen that could save you a tempo. So Giri hits the knight, and Shaq charges into d5. Very complicated situation. In a way, just a pawn up for white, but still you have to worry with that king in the center. You could take on e4. Bishop could take b4. So Gary decides to develop, covering this, covering that, and all the rooks are connected. So, okay, this could get very complicated. This isn't so entertaining, but in case you get a situation like this, what do you do on the white side? Just a couple of suggestions for moves, because you can get into trouble really easily in this situation. Okay, very good. Get out of dodge, and how should we do it? Yeah, exactly right. You want to quickly develop, quickly get castled, don't get into trouble. So bishop d3 is begging to be played. Who suggested that? Thank you, Mike. Yeah, so in one move, you'll feel much better. Okay, Gary still wants to cause a lot of trouble, and he goes bishop e3, e6, pinning the knight. And this is where most people, like, I would look at this and I say, oh, I just castle, you know, you sort of got a good game, you're developed, you won't get into any trouble. But if you're playing tomorrow night, you get a sense of the opponent you're going to have. This Shaq, he doesn't just sit there. He goes, all right, I'm going to push it. I'm doing something for action. Let me cause trouble to my opponent. So instead of castling, he hits the bishop on e6. There you're breaking a rule, you know, moving a piece twice before you're completely developed. But okay, it causes trouble to this bishop. You know, the bishop was ready to go rook d8 and win a pawn back, cause you trouble. But quickly you have to worry about him capturing on e6. So it's complicated. There's no straightforward, easy solution for black here. And maybe you should take on c5. Maybe you should move the bishop. But Gary was playing for development, and he developed a rook hitting the d5 square. Okay, black's threatening to take on d5. You've got to do something, and Shaq takes the bishop. The pawn takes, so okay, the pawns are doubled, but they're hitting the center. Both rooks active, bishops and knight. And always the question in these positions, well, does it work? So he takes the pawn on b4. Just kind of a simple move. My knight's attacked. I'll take that. And he thinks he's got things covered in the center. Well, Gary jumps in with the knight, covers the e6 pawn, attacks the queen. So that's black's strategy. Get you before you can get away. And Shaq moved the queen.
What about knight c6 then, for white?
Okay, knight c6. Gotta like that.
Oh, no, yeah, knight takes queen, bishop takes. Oh, what is it?
Yeah, I think you're right. Knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes knight, and the bishop on d3 is hanging.
Okay.
Not nice suggestion though. That's exactly. Well, although it's Black is the one who would like to try these really active moves. I think white just wants to get away, get out of dodge, as you say, and keep his extra pawns. So Shaq moves the queen here just out of take. And Geary ups the pressure. Again, he's got to do something. But he charges back with the knight to d7, and that knight's going to come in combination with the other pieces, try to cause a lot of trouble. I don't know if you would be nervous on the white side. I think I'd certainly be worried. Yeah, you can't castle. If you would castle knight e5.
Didn't you have knight c6 then, though?
That's what I was curious about.
Okay.
Looks better now than before.
In fact, you've got Shaq's move there. He did play knight c6. But Geary had a plan for that. He took the pawn on c5. So, okay. I guess, pardon?
Knight takes pawn check, queen takes knight.
There's a bishop here. We could trade the queens. Can take the exchange. In fact, very good. That's what he did. Taking the exchange, and then Geary hit him with the knight move. And everything's being attacked in the center.
Knight takes e6. This gets crazy.
Well, okay, Mike, I was looking for a bit more drama than that, because, queen takes queen, knight takes bishop check, and knight takes you've got everything threatened in that end game. But this was Shaq's move, and I like everything's attacked, everything action, and then calmly, which that kind of ruins the position for Black. Well, Geary moved the queen. So if the queen takes, knight checks, and bishop takes. I should just ask Mike here, what did Shaq do in this position?
I think knight takes d4 with the cover check, but the knight to g5 threatens the, no, it doesn't.
Knight takes d4, and I take your queen. You don't mind that, do you? It's just a queen.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm blind.
Sorry, Sam?
Oh, no, yeah, because you take that.
Okay, with a little assist there, Steph Curry and Sam get an assist.
She moved and he can't make it, then make it anyway, right?
So he did, and he just sacked the queen. And check. And so now at this point, we'd count. And so you would say,
We got a whole lot of material first.
whole lot of material. Two, we can count the little ones later, but there we go. So, okay, the knight is hanging. You have to save your knight and your other pieces and get castled, and then you'll just win the game. So he picked a good spot for it, hitting the rook. Rook hit the bishop on c4. Again, just bishop to here. Bishop takes the pawn. And if you were castle, it would all be easy, but and rook c2. So his next move, anybody? Rook, yeah, rook takes bishop, get rid of that guy. And yeah, if this, and then after the check, Gary gave up. Yeah, various ways you'll win. Even like
You're gonna play bishop take rook? Black?
yes,
I mean, white?
yeah, white'll do bishop takes rook check. Yeah, you can.
No, bishop take rook now, because you just...
Yeah. Bishop takes.
D4 check gets the bishop back, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, we might have had a discovered check, but as Sam is saying, king here takes, and
Oh, it's gonna check with...
but yeah. What's nice is the bishop covers the pawn, covers the knight, covers this pawn, and when you get your rook out, the knight, bishop, and rook just overwhelm the queen. But if you see Mamadero play, his games are just flowing, they're action, they're lots of fun. So 25 of those games tomorrow night. Okay, I think I may take another break, and anybody who wasn't here earlier,
Yeah, so I was just teaching the chess school earlier today, and I have some leftover books and DVDs that I'm selling in case anyone wants to buy them. So my book, Small Tips to Giant Improvement, is my first book. My second one's on the way. It should be out in a month or so. This goes for $40. And then my DVD series, Shanko Method Parts 1 and 2, are 16 hours each of calculation training for more strategically oriented positions, as opposed to the second one's more complicated tactical games. So the DVD series go for $80 for one set, or $120 for the both. They go for $120 online each. So if you don't want them, don't buy them. But if you do want them, they'll be cheaper now. So now's the time. Probably just stick around for just like 10 more minutes and then get on my way. But if anyone wants to buy them, I can take it without cash for everyone.
and did we mention that it was 16 hours?
16 hours each on the DVDs. It's a lot of work.
Okay. Well, I will continue on with our, yes?
I'm just confused about, I'm not playing Cornet, but I'm confused about the two players, how they, how's it going to hurt the two?
See, say Charles and I were giving a simul here, and I would come and I'd make a move and go on, and then Charles would come all along and you would make a move, and then Charles, usually alternating, but we'll check with Abel. I believe they may do a bit of discussion or figure out how to best do it to make it go quickly. And it's with time. I think they get, I'm not sure, but something like 40 minutes each. Oh no, maybe they get an hour and a half and you get 45 minutes.
I have a question. Do they know who the stronger players are? Like Patrick Wolf, would they know? Has he pointed out that you should watch out for him?
Abel's going to point out, there's like an international master.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Patrick and a master too, so.
So the one player could want to do an attack and the other one might not.
That's it. If you play with Ulf Anderson and, you make an aggressive move and then he comes down and moves the piece back to a safe square. But yes, I've seen that happen too, where some players sacrifice. The next person in the tandem says, "What's going on?" So, also going on in the chess world is the British Championship, which just finished, and one of the oldest championships in the world. And the winner was actually, no surprise, was Michael Adams, which he got, I think, 7 out of 9 there, won by half a point. But what's funny about this is it's also the 30th anniversary of him winning his first British championship back in 1989. I think that's when Taylor Swift was born or something. Okay, somehow Britain used to have a lot of the top players. Now they have a few, but still he's as good as anyone in the country. I thought I'd show you one of his last round game, which was a little one-sided, but it's entertaining. And maybe it's an opening you want to do too. A lot of top players aren't going for the old standard main lines. They find some what used to be deviant routes. So check, knight to d7, which you can interpose the bishop or the knight on c6, and okay, I've got the score right, bishop to a4, and
Adams white?
pardon?
Whose side is that?
Adams had the white side, and he's cleared the higher rated opponent against Stephen Gordon on the black side. So, and I had assumed it was normal enough opening moves, but I may ask Sam on this one. Now black plays knight f6, and he castles. Wouldn't you take that pawn?
And he kills. Rook e1, d4, boom, boom. Don't want it.
Maybe.
There's no way you get kills.
Okay. Well, I'll certainly take your word for it. He played pawn to a6. Bad move?
Why will not play c4?
And c4 blocks pawn to b5, takes the center. So the computer doesn't mind black's position so much here, but yeah, what's his plan going to be?
So is that the point of bishop a4, that you can play c4, but don't move the tempo at that point? If you had castled, well, I suppose they could go a6, although you'd probably just take the knight then. But yes, this now gives you the time for a very useful move, blocking the b5 and holding the center. So the next move, pawn to e5.
That's f6.
Sorry, knight f6, castles.
On f6. Like that's what
Yeah. Yes, see. Okay, now I would prefer probably e6, a sort of hedgehog. e5 gives you this static kind of game. And Gordon develops his bishop here since there's not any future on e7. Castles, bishop e7. Any suggestion for the white side here? What would be your plan in such a position?
Nerdy one.
Okay. Oh, you mean to go pawn to f4?
Or to go to C2, E3, and do D5.
Okay. At first I thought you were joking, but there's a lot of sense to that move.
Any other plan? It's true. Developing the bishop is logical.
Well, now you got all your pawns on my square, you might want to just put bishop in, right?
You could, yes. All right, but Adam's plans, okay, it's riskless, it's,
H3, they play knight H6 the day before.
okay. Well, maybe you'll like his move, rook to b1. And that gives white some initiative. Yes, you're moving on this side of the board, which is hard for him to get in pawn to b5. Play continued castles, and before doing something he did play h3. So the next move, knight e8, because black's trying to get a plan. And his idea is like knight c7, pawn b5. So Adams breaks on the queen side first before you get there. Pawn takes, rook takes, knight to c5. These are nice pawns on c4 and e4. You've got some firm center here. Well, black's not quite as firm in the center. So Adams now jumps in with knight to d5, and it looks quite threatening. I mean, b6 square is a little loose and such. But Gordon should probably just come out with his knight here. At least he's all solid. Knights are quite good in this position, as good as bishops. He tries something tactical, though. He hits out with pawn to b5. Okay, you thought you prevented that. The pawn takes. But then he went bishop d7. His plan to use this piece is here.
Couldn't you have played, I guess not, I said it queen and pawn. I was thinking he could play knight takes a4.
Okay, it would have been takes this position, and I guess we can at least win a.
Bishop takes pawn now.
It's this position here.
Oh, okay.
Let's we had knight on c5, pawn, bishop, pawn on b7. So it was this position where I went pawn to b5. You could take it, but that knight's easily as good as that bishop.
Yeah, okay.
So he tried to do something tactical. Pawn takes, bishop here, and this may be your game tonight. Your opponent's in some trouble, feeling the pressure, tries to get out with some kind of maneuver like this. But it's not good if you find the right plan. So this position's your warm-up position. How do you get a very clear advantage on the white side?
Bishop g5. Knight to d6.
Sorry, bishop g5 is logical. I'd probably push the pawn up here. Oh, okay. Right, first round, okay. So, yeah, but this, and the rest of the game we may go through a little quickly if we get the right idea here. What was the other suggestion? He's going to deal with the problem over here. A sort of pin. And with the
Well, it's probably worth the exchange, just put the pawn. Take the pawn.
Mike, you seem to just be spot on tonight. That's the move he played, just push the pawn. And you think, oh no, I can't do that because I'm going to lose some material over here. But it's the old rule, look what's left, not what comes off the board. So after that move, if you see what happened, pawn to b6, knight takes, rook takes, bishop takes a4, queen takes a4. You've won the exchange, but look at this position. You have this monster knight here. You have this terrible pawn. And you'd really like to get rid of this knight, but you would pin it and you'd happily just give that bishop for the knight. This bishop has no future, and that knight's dominant. I'll show you how it continued so you just get the sense of how powerful this is. He first did pawn here. This knight came into play. See how the rooks have no open files, so they're not strong. Now both knights are super powerful here. Queen here, and I guess could ask the last suggestion, but you could do different things, but Adam's move is just very, very clean. He even trades the queen down material. Queen takes, rook takes, because even in the endgame, these knights are so much more powerful than the rooks. Develop, so all the white pieces are superb. Stops. Bishop. Rook. Knight to here. Knight to c6. Rook b7. Yeah, I mean it looks so dominant, and it was kind of like the position before. Anybody see a nice winning plan here? I mean, you feel really good with these knights, which these things can't attack.
Move the rook over and just try to capture pawn on a6.
To move the rook and rook, see, I wonder if that would work. Knight f6, takes. You know, I think that could work.
What about just A4,
Knight
A5?
takes, knight to b4.
No, don't take that bishop unless you have to. That bishop has no future unless it's going to win your pawn. And the rooks can't attack your knights. And because Abel's told me I have to finish up, once again, Mike got the right plan, a4. And when this pawn gets to a5, that b pawn is, just a monster, completely protected. The bishop has no future. Knight f6. And the final move of the game is just attack that pawn. And there's just no way to defend it, no way to stop the white pieces, and then you'll have the two passed pawns. So Gordon resigned, giving Adams his probably like his 5th British championship in the last 30 years. Okay, good luck tonight.
Well, I got a group session. I'm here for 5 more minutes. If anyone wants to buy books or DVDs, I got them for sale. They're going to be cheaper here than online. As I've said, if you don't want them, don't buy them. If you do want them, get them here.